Hello and welcome to the Flow Tao Salon. Today we are diving deep into a market that, is often overlooked but is just packed with potential, Australia. Our guide for this journey is the Global E-commerce Market Report Australia edition. It's a fantastic piece of research from the team at AMZ 123, and it gives us a really sharp focus on what to expect heading into 2025.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big picture opportunity, then we'll get to know the Aussie consumer, who they are, what they want. After that, we'll see where they're shopping and figure out the strategies to actually win them over. And then we'll wrap it all up with 3 key takeaways you won't want to forget.
Okay, first things first, let's set the stage. Why should anyone really be paying attention to Australia right now? Well, the numbers, they paint a very, very compelling picture of a market that punches way above its weight. By 2025, the Australian e-commerce market is projected to hit nearly $40 billion. Now, what's really important here isn't some crazy explosive growth. It's the stable, reliable expansion. And that is a huge sign of a healthy, mature market. And here is the power behind that market size. The per capita GDP for 2024 is over $64,000. To put that in perspective, that actually outpaces economic powerhouses like Germany and Canada. So what this means is Australians don't just shop online. They have some serious spending power. Now, what I find really fascinating about this slide is just how connected Australia is. I mean, it is deeply woven into global supply chains. It's no surprise that China is the #1 import partner, making up more than a quarter of all imports. But you also see the US and other key Asian economies right behind. This shows a market that is totally open and completely accustomed to international goods. So, we've seen the sheer size of the market and the consumer's incredible spending power. Now, let's meet the person on the other side of the screen. Let's talk about the Australian consumer. Because really, understanding the buyer, what they want, how they think, what really drives their decisions, that is the absolute first step to winning their business. All right, no huge shocker here. Millennials are the dominant force in online spending. They make up over a third of the entire market. But look a little closer. The real story here is the growth from older generations. Baby boomers actually increased their online spending by nearly 18% year over year. This is not just a market for the young. And this just highlights that a one-size-fits-all approach to promotions is just not going to work. There's a really clear generational divide. Younger shoppers, they're hunting for a straightforward discount. But older shoppers, they prioritize convenience above all else. For them, free shipping isn't some nice little bonus. It's the baseline expectation. These numbers tell a crystal clear story. The Australian consumer is pragmatic. They are driven by price and they are driven by convenience. They're not particularly loyal either, with the majority willing to switch brands just to save a few bucks. And maybe most importantly, the experience doesn't end at checkout. For nearly 80% of them, the delivery experience is the final verdict on their satisfaction. All right, so we have a solid profile of who's doing the shopping. Now let's follow the money. Where are they actually spending it? Let's take a look at the key players in this digital marketplace. The two titans, Amazon and eBay, they still hold the top spots. Over half of all online shoppers bought from them in the last year. But the disruptor here, wow, it's impossible to ignore. Temu, in an incredibly short amount of time, has captured nearly half the market, totally reshaping the landscape with its super aggressive pricing. And this insight from the report is absolutely critical. It shows that while a huge number of Australians have tried Temu, getting them to come back and become regular loyal customers, well, that's a completely different challenge. This tells us the next big battleground isn't going to be for eyeballs, it's going to be for loyalty. So, while Google is still the default starting point for more than half of all product searches, what's really fascinating here is the trend line for Amazon. Direct searches on Amazon are up 27% year over year. It's transforming from just a place to buy stuff into a powerful product discovery engine in its own right. Okay, so we know the who and the where. Now it's time for the most important part, the how. What does it actually take to succeed in this really competitive market? If you remember just one thing from our conversation today, make it this: logistics are everything. The report says that for 85% of consumers, their trust in an e-commerce platform over the next 5 years will depend almost entirely on how reliable its delivery service is. It has to be free, fast, flexible, and above all, reliable. This slide is basically your marketing calendar for the year. Success means lining up your promotions with these key shopping moments.
The end of financial year sale is great for big-ticket items, but the real growth engine here is Black Friday, which saw 10% year-over-year growth in spending. Tapping into this calendar is just non-negotiable.
So, after digging through all of this data, let's distill it all down. What are the key takeaways every single seller needs to remember about the Australian market? Okay, the first key takeaway is that the Australian consumer is not an impulse buyer. They are rational, they're savvy, and they are relentlessly focused on value. They will compare prices, they prioritize convenience, and as we saw, 62% will switch brands without even hesitating, just to save money. Brand loyalty here is earned, it is not given. Second, and this is so important, remember that logistics aren't just a back-end operation. They are a core part of the customer experience. A free, fast, and reliable delivery is the single biggest factor driving repeat business and building long-term trust. Getting that product to the customer's doors seamlessly is just as important as the product itself. And finally, while the big categories like fashion and electronics are pretty crowded, the report shows fantastic potential in more niche areas. Categories like DIY, home improvement, and even luggage are showing really strong growth. And underneath all of that is the rapidly expanding secondhand market, which is driven by a consumer base that's increasingly conscious of both price and sustainability. And that's really the core question this report leaves us with. Australia is not a market for quick wins. It's a market that richly rewards sellers who understand that the customer journey doesn't end at the checkout button, but at the front door. It's all about building a business to deliver an experience, not just to sell a product.